now. So James, over to you.
Great. Thanks very much, Graham. So I was saying, good evening to all fellow descendants of Samuel II and Lucy Milam Hassall. As mentioned, my name is James Daniel. I'm a coordinator or co-coordinator, there's three of us, of the Samuel and Lucy Hassall family line, along with my fellow coordinators, Melissa Blanks and Catherine Cohen. It's great to see so many present, and I do hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you.
And now
Kathy?
I'll ask each of you to briefly introduce yourselves. As we said in our email to you, you only need to give your name and where you live. I might as well start with myself. I'm Catherine Cohen, but although I like to be known as Kathy, I was born and bred in Sydney, but since 2006, I've been living on the far north coast of New South Wales at Alston Vale in the Ballina Bar and hinterland. Now I'll ask my fellow coordinator, James, to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Before I do introduce myself again, I should mention our third coordinator, Melissa Blanks, is caught in, I believe, a traffic snarl due to an accident somewhere in the Central Coast, and will be here at about 10 to 8, and then that'll give her the opportunity to introduce us then herself later during the meeting. So there we go. As I say, it's good evening again. As mentioned, my name is James Daniel. I live 18 kilometres north of downtown Sydney in Frenchs Forest East, and which is part of the Northern Beaches LGA. Kathy, I might leave it back to you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask each of you to speak in the order as you're on screen. So Graham, you're next.
Graham Hassall. I live in the Gold Coast, grew up in Sydney, and I'm putting a bit of time into the Hassall Family History Association at the current time.
I'm David Hugh Hassall. I live at Bingie on the south coast of New South Wales, very close to Moruya.
Beatrice?
So Beatrice, I'm sorry, I muted you. You have to unmute yourself. Go down to the left again and hit the button and unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Beatrice Blanks, Lee Proctor. My father was the Harry Hassall Proctor, and his mother was Emma Hassall, who had all these children, and one of all the children from James Milam, I think. That was at Wambrook. And I live in Boston, and I grew up at Griffith in the country. Dad was a soldier settler, and along with his two brothers after the First World War. And I think they all enrolled in Cootamundra. I think that my daughter went there, and Canamble, I'm sorry. And there's a list of all the soldiers who enlisted there, and the three brothers, four brothers actually, and one got pneumonia in Alexandria and passed away, but the other three brothers came back. One brother was too young to go. So their mother was Emma Hassall, and she was one of the large family of 14. So that's where I sort of fit, I think.
Thank you very much.
Next.
Next, we have Andrew Hassall.
Hello. Yes, I'm A. Hassall. Wonderful era of naming, but never mind. It's fun. I live in East Brisbane, which is like Woolloongabba in Brisbane, and I have two sons, Thomas and John Hassall. My father is still alive. He's aged 90, and his name is Gavin Hassall. And my grandfather was Roy Hassall, who was a teacher.
At Ivanhoe?
No, he wasn't at Ivanhoe. He was at Parks and Orange and Stock and Bingle and Hanwood and
His wife Ivy, because he ended up in Sydney. Errol and his one son was Errol.
Errol, Yes, he's passed away, but my father Gavin is still
Oh, so you're
alive.
the son of
He's
Gavin.
90. Yeah. Anyway, so it's wonderful to meet all my cousins, not first cousins, but hello.
Second.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. And at some stage, maybe we could get together and do a special presentation on our French connections because they fascinate me too. Okay,
Vive
next.
la
I think-
France.
There we. Next, we have Claire Castle.
Hello, everyone. My name's Claire Castle, and I live in Blaxland in the Blue Mountains, New South Wales.
Oh, thank you, Claire. And David Hassall, who is actually the oldest living member of the Samuel Lucy Hassall line. That's correct, isn't it, David?
Something like that, yes. David Hassall. I live at Coffs Harbour, and I happen to be the father of the guy on my left, Graham. So been very interested in family affairs for several years. So I think that's all I have to say, isn't it? Yeah.
Haven't been, David, have you?
Pardon?
Haven't been flooded out?
No, not here, not where we are. We're up on a bit of a hill, so there's no problem here,
Oh,
unless the roof starts to leak. Otherwise we're all right.
that's good.
But I'm fascinated to meet all you folk. I could swap notes with all of you, like Andrew. Stuart Hume, you got Stuart Hume's book? He talks all about Hugh and de Kerallo and how he got the name and so on. And he even went to France and met some of the original family.
Right.
That's how far he went into it.
No, I haven't got the book. Sounds good though.
Mhm.
It's I think it's out of print.
I might borrow your copy in May.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel we've got to have another Zoom meeting. It's just that we've got so many people to go and a lot.
That's right.
on the-
Sorry about that.
No, it's great. It really is good to hear.
All right, next we have Jane Miura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane. I'm a descendant of Thomas Hassall and Anne Marsden. I live in Narrabeen, which is a suburb in Sydney on the lower North Shore.
Oh, thank you, Anne. And Hugh, and you've spoken. Now we have Julie Gordon, who I think we can hear but not see.
No, she put a note up on the chat, I believe, that she had to duck out.
All right.
think I did see it.
Okay, then we'll move on to Jenny Farrell.
Oh, hi everybody. I'm not sure the microphone on my computer works very well.
It's great.
It's lovely to it's lovely to see so many family faces and finally sort of get connected. I'm connected through my grandmother, Annie Beatrice Hassall. And unfortunately, her only child, my mum, has passed away, and none of my two sisters managed to join as well. So a hello from Kristen, who lives in Darwin, and Belinda, who lives in Lane Cove. I don't live too far from Belinda. I live in Greenwich, which is quite close to some of my other relatives I'm just hearing.
Oh, well, we hope we all get together at the reunion. And I met up with Belinda at Bluesfest at Byron Bay this year, which is great fun. Okay, next we have Eve Shue.
Thanks, Kathy. Well, Kathy's my sister, and so is Julie. And we are the grandchildren of Laura Hassall. I live in Chatswood, the North Shore, which isn't too far from Greenwich. Jenny, lovely to see you. Hi.
You too.
Thank you. I don't know what else. Oh, my middle name's Marsden, so that's a connection.
So you are related to James? James?
Sorry?
You related to James?
Yeah, so James, sorry, James. So James and the deceased Nigel, very sadly, William and Stuart and Philip are myself, Kathy and Julie's first cousins.
Right.
So James's, and we call them the boys, father, Miles Daniel, was the brother of our mother, Jennifer Daniel.
Dr. Daniel.
Dr. Daniel.
And his wife was Laura.
Yes, that's right.
I should also mention, Eve, that William's daughter, Michelle's here tonight.
Oh, hi, Michelle. That's lovely.
Yeah,
so Michelle,
William,
our niece.
Hi, sorry, it's really.
no, good. You have. Well,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, hello everyone. Sorry, it's quite loud here. I've got my son and all his friends over for a sleepover at school holidays, so it's a bit chaotic. I'll put myself back on mute. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, great.
Michelle.
Okay, who do we have next? I think it's Alison, the secretary of the association. Hello, Alison.
Hi, I'm descended through Thomas. I was brought up around Oberon and Bathurst. So every time we drove from Oberon to Bathurst, I drove through the grants that were given to 6 of Roland Hassall's children there. I don't live there anymore, but I go up pretty much every week to Bathurst to visit my parents who are in their 90s, and I'm in Sydney. And it's my pleasure to be the secretary of the Hassall family. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Alison. And now we have all the way from Western Australia, Stephanie Bentley. Hello, Stephanie. Steph, press mute. Take yourself off mute.
Well, actually, it's not as easy as that because she's already off mute. Stephanie,
Oh,
we
is
can't hear
she?
you. Your microphone is too low, Stephanie. We can see you, but we can't hear you. So maybe, Catherine, come back to Stephanie if she can check that. And Stephanie, you could chat something, but at the moment we can't hear you. I'm so sorry. So Catherine, maybe pick someone else and
Okay.
work on the sound.
Well, it's lucky I was a teacher, so I could tick everyone off the roll. I think Rosemary's the next one. Rosemary Hassall.
Yeah. Rosemary Hassall. I live in Orange with my husband, Frank Hassall, who sends his apologies tonight because he's hasn't got a voice actually, but I know there's some cousins of him here tonight, so hello to them.
Yes, nice to hear
hello,
from.
David.
I must get in touch with you, Faye.
Well, you do very well, I think.
I owe you a phone call if I can find a phone number or an email address.
Right, now
I was born in Orange, so we've got an interest in Orange.
Where's that? Graham?
Yeah.
That's right, you were, weren't you? We had this conversation. Yes.
Right.
Yes, gosh.
Sorry, Catherine, over to you.
That's okay. Now we have Robert Wiles.
Yes, I grew up in Sydney, but
Right.
I've been in Cooma for the last 31 years, and David Hassall is my uncle. I'm actually in Armidale at the moment, looking after my mum. So my mum is slightly younger than Uncle David. That makes Graham my first cousin.
Right.
Are you a doctor?
Yes.
Oh, you were in the big photo.
Yes.
Yes, I remember you. And you were in a costume.
Yes, with our youngest, who was 3 months old.
Yes, I remember that well. So you're retired now, I suppose.
No, I'm still working.
Still working.
Wonderful.
Now we have the newly wedded Philip and Stuart Daniel, I think. Yes, Philip and Stuart.
Hi, Eve. It's Philip and Stuart Daniel.
I mean,
no, it's Philip and Stuart Daniel. We are the grandsons of Laura Hassall. We're from Hawke's Nest in Port Stephens. And our wives, Alicia and Christina, are also identical twins from Boston. Yes.
Yeah. And we're not seeing you because you're coming through on your iPhone. Is that right? Is anyone, Graham, are you picking up my brothers, my twin brothers?
Yes, we can see.
We can see you, but we can see you.
You'll have a button at the side, and you can slide that, and you can see who else is on the call. You have control over things, so you will be able to see them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, yeah. No, I can see all the names there, and that's good. That's great.
Right.
Great, Stuart and Philip for coming along.
Now,
Okay, yes, thanks, James. That's
Melissa
great.
Blanks has managed the traffic problems and has managed to join us now. So hello, Melissa.
Yes, I've just got back from the Central Coast, so just an unexpected detour there. Hello, my name is Melissa Blanks. I'm part of the Samuel Hassall and Lucy Malvern line, and I live in Sydney, and I'm very excited for the next year's gathering, and just really enjoying the journey of learning about this family and what they've done and the future of this family too.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Right now, next is Michelle Daniel. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? How is everyone?
Good. Wonderful.
My name is Michelle Daniel. I live in Freshwater. That's part of the Northern Beaches LGA. My Uncle James, Uncle Philip and Uncle Stuart, Auntie Eve are here, I think. Hello. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. I think you're the only one of your generation, which would be the ninth generation, to be here. So it's really good to see someone representing you all.
Very interesting. I'm very interested to hear about tonight's session.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, who have I missed? Anyone? Oh, we're still trying to get here. Stephanie, aren't we?
We've got also David Burke's online and F. Loxton's online.
Oh, right. No, I think, have we spoken to you? And what's it? Oh, F. Loxton, what does the F stand for?
Fiona, my wife.
Right.
I'm John. I connect in through my great grandmother was Annie Nina Cordelia Hassall, and she married George Frederick Litchfield and moved to Cooma. And one of their daughters was Nancy Laura Litchfield, who was my father's mother.
You ring
I live in
Stephanie Bentley.
Sydney born and bred.
She's not on. What's she got there? I don't know.
Oh, nice to meet you, John, right?
Yeah, John. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so with David Burke.
No, nobody is. Nobody
Oh, what's happened to David Burke? He seems to have disappeared.
Okay, and we'll just check if Stephanie can hear us. She's on the phone, maybe trying to.
All right.
I've just given her a ring. Friends ringing her.
Okay, so look, I think James, Catherine, Melissa, we've gone through the introduction, so we'll.
I think we're just missing David Burke, Graham.
Yes.
He seems to have disappeared from the screen.
That's right.
Ask Graham. Use caption.
Yes, we can see you.
So I suggest that you continue, James and Catherine, Melissa.
Okay.
Hugh, I'm just going to mute you for a moment while Fran sorts out Stephanie.
Okay.
Oh, or if you know how to do that, you can mute yourself. Okay, back over to the convener.
Yeah. So it's Catherine, I think. Back to you.
Right.
Well, they can see you. They can all see you, and they.
So will we go on to you, Graham, as the president of the Hassall Family History Association, to give an introduction to the association?
Yes, I'm very happy to do that.
Okay.
So thank you for that. I'm just going to put this on slideshow and just confirm that you can see the slideshow and that you're seeing the presentation view of the slideshow. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes, I can see.
So
wonderful.
just going to take a few minutes to talk about the association before we move on to talking about Samuel and Lucy. We have three main purposes: to foster and disseminate research on the life and heritage of Roland and Elizabeth Hassall and their descendants. And, you know, we have on this call tonight actually three members of the working group for the 1998 bicentenary event in Sydney: Robert Wiles, my father David Hassall, and Ewan Hassall. So it's a really special night to have them on board. They formed the Hassall family history. What did you call it? It wasn't an association. We called it.
It was a group.
Just a group. And they got this all going. And so here we are, 25 years later. Thank you for putting it all together in the first place. So what we're trying to do is foster the research on our own family, but also their relations with other early settler families. But in addition to looking at the deep past, we're also interested in the Hassalls of the contemporary period. My father's calculated there's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 descendants of Roland and Elizabeth in Australia. So we're just a small subset of that group, but that's the Hassall Family History Association as it currently is, with its purposes, and we look forward to everybody being on board and, you know, playing a role and learning together. As you know, Roland and Elizabeth had 8 children who grew to maturity, and unfortunately they lost an infant, Elizabeth, who died at the age of 2, but the other 8 children all married and had children of their own. And we've been having this series of online sessions. I can't advertise anymore because this is the last of them. This is the 8th of this current series, which we're having tonight. Now, you might be interested to know that these 8 children who married, between them, had approximately 62 children. So the third generation was 62, approximately 50 spouses, not everybody married. Samuel and Lucy had 6 children, one of whom died as an infant and one who was unmarried. So that most of us who are online tonight come from about 4 lines. I'm going to continue just a little longer to put the Hassall family in context. I'm not taking a long time about this because it's not the main topic for tonight, but it says some context to this large family. We know that Roland and Elizabeth's years in England, particularly in Coventry, where they grew up, were their formative years. And we know that their period in the Pacific and Tahiti was a sign of their courage and their strength, really, and their determination to survive that challenging period in their life. But it's really the years in Parramatta that, when we talk about the growth of family, because that's where they raised their children. And you see that although Roland had an untimely death in 1820, nonetheless, there were 22 years in Parramatta, and Elizabeth a far longer period. They are not the focus tonight, of course. Samuel is, but we see here the timelines for the children. And again, I won't go through in detail. This is available, but it gives you context. What I'm going to do is set out this context that Samuel is born in 1796. His father passes away 1820. Samuel's age 24. His mother passes away in 1834. Samuel's already passed away by then. These lines coming up are showing the marriages. There's the famous triple wedding. Samuel and Lucy were part of that triple wedding in 1819 at St. John's in Parramatta. And this is the other children getting married in those dates coming up on your screen. 1819, Samuel and Lucy marry. And of the 9 children, 5 of them passed away before the age of 40, and that includes our Samuel. And then there were 4 of the children who lived longer, Susanna being the longest, living up to 84 years. Now, I mentioned that there were so many grandchildren of Roland and Elizabeth, and in green, I've put the children of Samuel and Lucy. Unfortunately, their firstborn, Roland, died as an infant in the same epidemic that took his grandfather, Roland. But the other children came in the 1820s, one in 1830, and that's the children of Samuel and Lucy. Now, how long did they live for? Well, there was Roland who passed away 1820, and the other of our forebears, we've all descended from one of these, from Thomas, Elizabeth, Mary, or James, not Samuel O2. He didn't have family. So that's a little bit about just the context of that busy family and that life in Parramatta with so many children growing up and the business of getting married and having their own children and finding where to live, etc., which is part of the story. So our association has 4 projects, and one is research and publication, where we try to pull this together both in books and also the newsletter. And in the future, there'll be more. There's so much study going on. We hope to be able to publish and continually update and revise and get accurate family story. There are many places online where our family is featured. For example, the Australian Dictionary Biography has many, not just those with Hassall surname, but all the other surnames that are associated. And so Samuel's one of those who has an obituary there. You can go onto those grave sites like Find a Grave or Billion Graves, and you can find the tombstones of our descendants, in this case, Samuel and Lucy. I won't go into detail about that, but the next project is a genealogy project where you've been mentioning in the introductions who you're descended from. We try to capture that information in a database so that we can make those linkages. And we want to be in touch with everybody to update this database and share it with everybody. And we'll make a feature of this in May next year so that people can learn from it and add to it. And it helps you to find your connections, because some people don't know their connection. They've heard from the family that connected, but we can help to sort that out if you want to find those deeper connections. The 4th project we have is a transcription one, because we have at least 8,000 pages in the State Library of New South Wales. There are also some papers in other libraries, and there are also many other collections at the State Library that have material from our family. But this Hassall Family Papers collection is digitized, and we're gradually transcribing it. We welcome the participation of any other family members who want to take part in that transcription, because once you transcribe it, it becomes readable and searchable, and you can find it even on a Google search. You can find this material. So that's the 4 projects. And of course, apart from that project is the event that we're holding next year. And at that stage, I'm going to hand it back to the conveners, who will probably hand over to Alison to speak a little bit about that. I've just got to learn how to...
You're reading me 100%, Graham. And thanks very much for that background on the Hassall Family History Association. But yes, Alison Shaw, the Secretary of the Hassall Family Association. I'd like to invite you to give an overview of the reunion next year. And also another thing I'd like to encourage, I know a number of people have done already, is to put their name and email on the chat format, just so one another can contact each other if need be. But as mentioned, at this stage, Alison, if I could hand it over to you to hear about the event next year.
Thank you, James. Graham, can you just help me with the share screen, please?
Yes, we did
So
in advance. So I'm doing it now, Alison. So it's you're a co-host now, and you'll be able to share your screen.
So I can go share. Do I press sign in when it says it, or just
share screen? You nominate your presentation and you hit share screen.
Okay, so just let me go back. So I've got all that up. I'm hitting share screen. Link to this slide. Is that what I click?
Try it.
It says sign in.
No, you don't need to sign in.
Okay, so we've done this before. Share screen. So bear with me. Tell me again, Graham. I'm quite happy if then just get that. I just need to, so if I go slideshow and then from the beginning. Now, have you got it?
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay. No, I've just taken it off. What have I done? No. Share screen. As you can see, I'm probably better as a secretary than a tech head. So this is just one page that I'm going to talk to. And I've just rejigged a little bit the page that Graham had up. And the reunion is in May 2022. 23, the 5th to the 8th. And this is simply a draft program or a shell of some ideas that we've got at the moment. So on the Saturday is the main day at the Thomas Hassall Anglican College, where I've just called it Hassall Day. We can call it anything else, but for today's purpose, that's where most people will come together, and we've got in the morning some sessions where you can choose what to do. We'll have a guest speaker, and in the afternoon after lunch, hopefully another speaker, and we'll have those large photos and the family line photos. And then after another session that you can choose what you will do, we'll have a dinner with as guest speaker and what else we decide to have. The day before that, you can choose to come down to the southwest of Sydney, where the Hassalls lived and a lot of their lives, in Camden, Cobbitty and Narellan. We'll go to some family homes there, hopefully, and learn a lot more about the early Hassalls. Hopefully we'll get we'll be able to go to Denby, the place that Thomas Hassall bought in about 1826 or a touch before. And he bought that from Captain Hook, I think it was a captain, where he lived with his family, and that's a very well known place, and it's been owned by the Macintoshes family right up to this day. And then in the evening, hopefully a few of people can go to a Merrill dinner that we're hoping to organise. On the Sunday, we'll move from the Thomas Hassall Anglican College, which is down near Narellan, up to Parramatta. Sunday will be spent in Parramatta with some walks around the Parramatta area, which, as you know, is where the early colonial life existed, because they had to grow their crops. That was better fertile land. And so where you see Parramatta Wharf down there as one of the points, of course, a lot of people came up the river by boat, and a lot of lives started by getting in and out of their vessels there to continue on with their lives. But of course, they rode horses. Some of them would have come up from Sydney town on a horse. That would have just, well, I don't know how long it would have taken, but in the afternoon, we're hoping to have a small service at St John's Parramatta, where Roland Hassall didn't work, but they're in their Sunday school there. They have a room dedicated to Thomas Hassall, who of course started Sunday school in Parramatta. But it's also interesting to note that Roland, while he was in Coventry, before he came to Australia as a Tahiti as a missionary, he also started a Sunday school in Coventry. So Thomas perhaps had a bit of a helping hand there, but it's very interesting to see that the establishment of the Sunday school in Parramatta grew up to 150 people, where they then had to move into the St John's area for the church. On the Monday, we're hoping to organise some trips further afield. I'm hoping to take anybody who would like to come in the direction of O'Connell, where, as I said, 6 of the Hassall children were granted land, and there's the old barn that is still there. Lampeter was the name of the Thomas Hassall's property that he had there. Then Lampeter is still there on the gates in Mutton Falls Road. And hopefully we'll be able to get to walk down on that property, where you'll be able to see 4 very large oak trees that Thomas Hassall planted, and some stones, very large stones that would have formed the floor of part of his house there as well. There's a lot of other things in O'Connell that you can see, but everybody will meet in the Hassall Park at O'Connell, which my mother and I put submissions into Oberon Council for a park to be named Hassall Park. which is very fitting in that area, seeing that the Hassall family had a lot of land in that area. Why did they have that? Because Roland Hassall went over the mountains touch after 1815 when the mountain road was opened, and he saw the O'Connell Plains and thought that they were a very rich place and a good place to start over the mountains, hence the Hassall children being very lucky. I lived in Bathurst and I was a stone's throw from Holy Trinity Kelso, which was then Bathurst, where Thomas Hassall was the relieving chaplain, but he did the first births, deaths and marriages, and the people loved him there. There's been another trip for those who want to go in the Windsor direction to have a look at the St Matthew's Church at Windsor and the Hassall graves and sites that are also in that area. So the Hassalls, as you can see, were extended in a big way in the Sydney area, down south in the Cobbitty, Narellan area, out towards Bathurst, up towards Windsor. And then, as we heard the chit chat beforehand, all the property that was down around Cooma, etc., spreading further afield than just the Sydney area. So the most exciting thing is to get together with everybody in that Hassall, on those Hassall days, and to just be a part of everything. I found the first bicentenary in 1998 an absolute thrill to go to. As I said before in one of the sessions, you kind of burst with pride that everybody is taking all this in a wonderful way, and that we're so far into Australia, 225 years further into Australia, where we're all still connected. It's wonderful. So I look forward to seeing everybody in that May reunion. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Alison. That's great. And I sense there will be a lot more questions, maybe in the conclusion or the open forum. You'll be around for the rest of the presentation? Yep. Look, back to you, Kate.
James, just before you give your presentation, I was just wondering if we can now hear Stephanie Bentley. Stephanie, can we hear you yet? No, not yet. And the only other missing person is Robert Wiles. Is it Robert Wiles? No, David Burke. David Burke, are you still with us? I think he might have disappeared from the screen. Okay, we'll go on to your presentation now, James. So now Daniel will give a presentation about Samuel O'Toole and Lucy Marlam Hassall.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. What I will be looking though for is for Graham's support. Graham, is it possible to put that? Wow, mate, you're the wizard. You really are. Okay, thanks, Kathy. I'll be going through an edited version of Chapter 5 from a Hassall family book, which was written by Jean Stewart, David Hassall, with contributions from Robert Wiles, who's here, that's great, Andrew Keynes, David Richards, and Peter Proctor. It was published in 1998 and released at the Hassall family bicentenary in May 1998. This information was supplied to me by David Hassall. Thank you very much.
Can I just remark, it's David J. Hassall, wasn't me. It's David J. Hassall, is in Melbourne, is a journalist, and he and they've done a very good job on it.
Very good. Thank you very much for that clarification, David. Thank you. As you can already see on the screen that Graham's put up, I've highlighted parts in blue, and I'll pause on those briefly because I found them very interesting. If anyone would like to contribute, please join in. And just for your information, my presentation will take about 8 minutes. There's a section at the end, which I won't be covering, on their 6 children. And if you'd like the information on their 6 children, send me an email and I can send that through to you. So kicking off, Samuel Atu Hassall was born in Coventry on the 13th of May 1796 and baptised in West Orchard Independent Church on the 25th of July, just before his parents boarded the Duff to journey to the South Sea Islands. Because they knew they were going to Tahiti, his parents named him in honour of the young King Atu, who had been there when Captain Cook had been in Tahiti. Now we know where the name Atu came from, which I didn't think it was very much a Hassall name. I found that quite interesting. Samuel Hassall became a wool grower and farmer, gaining invaluable experience as assistant superintendent of government stock to his father Roland, between 1814 and 1819. Later, he became the superintendent, a position he held until his premature death in 1830. In 1880, he received a land grant in his own right at the O'Connell Plains near Bathurst, which he named Milford. He was mostly engaged in looking after his father's 400-acre farm, Macquarie Grove, on the Nepean River in Camden. He later worked his grant land at Bathurst and another extensive grant at Brewer. He was responsible for a large number of convicts and regularly received assigned convicts, including school mechanics. It's just interesting. I found the quality of the people that weren't sent to Australia were just not labourers. They were school mechanics, came out as convicts when the transports arrived in Sydney. Among the hazards of farming in remote areas were the frequent thefts which occurred. Samuel Hassall was robbed of horses by William Poole and others at Bathurst in 1822 by James Connor and James Heacott in 1823, and by a convict who robbed his house in the same year. This convict was charged with he charged also one of his assigned convicts, John Phillips, with neglect in duty and was convicted and received 25 lashes for it, a sign of the times. Having been brought up in such a devout family, it's not surprising to find that Samuel Hassall's name as a subscriber to the Auxiliary Bible Society of New South Wales. Like his brother Thomas, he seemed to have swung his religious allegiance behind the Church of England and supported Marsden. He was particularly supportive when Marsden objected to the former convict, James Bradley, setting up a Sunday school in the Wesleyan Chapel. The main crime seemed to be that the Sunday school could take pupils from the ones supported by Marsden. Competition everywhere. I found that just rather interesting. Thanks very much, Graham. Samuel hasn't described Bradley as a snake in the grass. This seemed pretty strong language to describe one who has been one of the more successful teachers in Parramatta, who had taught Samuel's own sisters in premises rented from Mrs. Shelley. There was such ill feeling about Bradley's Sunday school that some of the respectable women, such as Mrs. Hassall's mother and Mrs. Oakes, and other respectable and virtuous mothers of families, have ceased for a long time to visit the house where he resides, namely that of their beloved friend and neighbour Shelley. They really got together there, didn't they? Samuel Hassall married Lucy Milam on the 22nd of November 1819 at St John's, Parramatta, in the famous triple wedding with his brother Jonathan and sister Mary, which I saw in Graham's graph, which I thought was interesting. But earlier, Samuel had tried to court Anne Marsden, the daughter of the Reverend Samuel Marsden. As Mary noted in a letter to their brother Thomas in England, Anne had played hot and cold with him and behaved with rudeness to him. And their father also wrote, she seemed to slight him and treat him in a way I should not like to mention and wish to forget. Ironically, 3 years after Samuel's wedding, Anne married Thomas. Intriguing. Lucy Milam was the only daughter of Dr. James Milam and Elizabeth Price, with whom Milam had formed an alliance until her death in July 1818, and she was buried under the name of Elizabeth Milam. After Samuel's death at Macquarie Grove on the 25th of July 1830, said to have been the result of being caught in bad weather, Lucy continued to run rural pursuits, and a large team of bullocks were in her immense size, with very large horns and humps on their necks. I love the description. These bullocks regularly took goods to the Bathurst district, and it was said that Lucy was the first white woman to have ridden over the Blue Mountains. Oh, that was quite impressive. This is the closing part now. Samuel's tombstone was erected at his brother Thomas's church, St. Paul's in Cobbity, which must have been very sad for Thomas. The vault still can be in front of the historic Herbert Chapel there. It was originally 4 feet, 1.2 metres high, but since it's subsided to maybe a quarter of the level. The inscription, now indecipherable, read, "Sacred to the memory of Samuel Atu Hassall of Macquarie Grove, July 28th, 1830, aged 34. Also at his late residence, Macquarie Grove, on 18th November 1856, Thomas Hancock's second son of the above, deceased at the age of 30. So sad. They put so much effort in and passed away so early. In sacred memory of Lucy, beloved wife of Samuel Atu Hassall and widow of John James Howell, died in 1882. This is the final part. His death notice in the Sydney Monitor of 1830 commented that he was a hospitable, kind man. Had he had the benefits of a liberal education, he would have been a shining man. He was a very solid, useful character, very ambitious. Hence, when his properties fell to 1/4 of its value, accompanied by 4 years of failure of his harvest, he found he could not meet the pecuniary engagement. He had not firmness enough to contend with his blow. One of his creditors arrested him. This preyed on his spirits. He became an altered man, lingered on in a happy unexistence until he died. He has left one of the best wives and mothers with numerous family to deplore his premature death. His widow and family are left in comfortable circumstances. Almost puts a tear to my eye. It just gives you an indication of the challenges of being on the land. And I think it was very nicely said, what was in the Sydney Monitor. That's the presentation. Hello, there we go. My disappeared from the screen, but I've still got the hard copy, so I'll add to that. The last page was that the Samuel and Lucy Hassall had 6 children. I've got it in blue there. I'm not going to go into detail with the 6, but if you'd like the information on them, please send me an email in the chat forum, and I'm more than happy to send that through to you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention. Are there any comments or questions or at this stage before I pass it back to Kathy?
Well, I was now going to open the meeting for any comments and thoughts that any of you might have, but will we just try Stephanie one last time? Because she's all the way over in Western Australia and would love to hear her. Stephanie, can we hear you? I don't think so. All right, well, maybe another time, or maybe in person at the reunion. Hope to see you there. Okay, so does anyone want to make any comment, have any thoughts about any of it all, any questions? Just, come up.
One
I just
of the things that's been intriguing me, I wondered what the relationship was like between the Hassalls and the Aborigines in the various areas that they settled. I saw a book in a bookshop, which I didn't buy in the end, about the early frontier wars, and I looked up the name Hassall and saw that Samuel Atu Hassall had led a posse against some Aborigines that had been spearing cattle and sheep, and he and a group of farmers from that Macquarie Grove area apparently went after a group of Aborigines until they realised that they were being lured into an ambush, a trap, because they noticed that the Aborigines had taken the high ground up on the sandstone cliffs, and he made a judicious withdrawal. And so nothing actually came of it. But I just thought that was an interesting tidbit of history.
I think there's a lot to be added in that area, and it almost opens up another chapter. But yes, it was very much a sign of the times. And the research I did, it did cover a fair bit in that area. And I just felt time wasn't on my side to cover it. But I'm glad you brought it up. Because it is an important part of the time.
Could I just say on that line, should we, with this increased inclusion of the Aboriginal, the First Nation, what guilt should we feel with all this land that was taken basically from them? It's a very contentious subject, I know. I mean, my father was a farmer and he was granted land as a soldier settler. So they grew very wealthy with all this land that the grants that were given. Not my father, but the early family.
Beatrice, I'm on the same page as you, but Graham, when I brought this up before, you did say there should be at least some acknowledgement of country at the ceremonies at the reunion, one of the ceremonies at the reunion. Is that right? How are we going to include this issue in the reunion?
Thanks, Kathy. I think there will definitely be an acknowledgement to country, and we're working with the school on that because it's being held on the school premises. But I think that the larger issue of our understanding of engagement of the historical family and family in current times with First Nations is something that we can look at over a period of time. A number of members of our family have brought it up as a topic of either whether of interest or of concern. And I think that we need to find ways to have a conversation about it. There is literature on the subject. There's the material that has not yet been published, and there are some published materials, and there are some First Nations authors who are writing history of their people from their perspective and their oral histories, which reference the Hassall family as well. There's also the book In Old Australia by James Hassall, which has some reference to interaction with the Aborigines at the time. So, I'm just saying it's a really important topic. For those family members who want to look into it and understand it further, we should get together and do that. You can't do it quickly, and you've got to have good factual information. But that's where, the idea of how we, you can't change the past, but you can understand it, and we can help build the future of Australia by being part of this historic family that really benefited from those early days, and acknowledge that other families didn't benefit in the same way. And I think we just have to find ways to understand it and move forward in a compassionate way. That's all I can say about it now. I really do want to work with others on this topic and see how we can best understand it as a family.
On a lighter note, perhaps, I don't suppose any of you have got a newsletter from Mirvac about a new development that's going to be called Cobbity. Probably on family lands.
in the area. In general discussion, is there anything else? Melissa, fellow coordinator?
Yes. Well, just on that note, I think it's a journey towards reconciliation of all of this, and to trying to sort out the good chapters and the not so good, and to try to see that as a Christian family, their primary aim wasn't to benefit themselves. They were really trying to spread the gospel and to spread goodwill and make food for the community and to create schools and to be beneficiary to the community. So yeah, so there's many different perspectives and angles that we're moving towards that journey of reconciliation and to but I think there's a lot to be proud of in our history, in our family history, and you know, so here we are. And so just with next year, we were wanting to encourage people to invite their family members, their known Samuel and Samuel Hassall family members, and just pass the invitations on to the event, and also to join the Facebook page and for updates and newsletters and so forth there. And also with the event next year, if anyone has artifacts, letters, photos that they'd like to bring in to the gathering, to the event next year, because we'll have a secure area to be able to show those and display those closer to the date. And also if they didn't want to bring it in person, they could also send it online, or would have an online area for them to register those artifacts or photos. And also help us to get involved towards this event, who have skills, admin skills. It's also an opportunity to get to know the rest of the family on the way, and to learn a bit more about the life of the Hassalls, and which I think it's very noteworthy and inspiring, really, to what the amount of work they did to early Australia.
And I think Melissa, I agree with you, and I think that we've got to concentrate more on the positive things they did. That in old Australia, the way James protected those Aborigines who are about to be slaughtered by the other tribe, and the work that Roland did with that school, which catered for Aborigines. I think those positive things should be part of our work too.
I mean, of course, we've got to acknowledge the wrong and to have the truth, the full truth and history, but also to acknowledge the good and the right and the true and the great works that they did do.
Yeah.
I think it's not it's taking all the information and putting it in context and having a balanced view. Often history can be cherry picked, and because people have an agenda, and certainly when you read all the pages from especially the 1930s and older, they did have an agenda, and they were saying how wonderfully people had built Australia. Now it seems to me that the media's gone the other way, and it says how dreadful they built Australia. And having read, I read some history at Sydney University when I was doing my medical degree, because I was interested in Australian history. And so it depends on your context and your agenda as to what you come up with. I think to be fair, you need to not have a bias if that's possible. Everyone's got a bias, but to try and take all the information and have, as Huon says, look at the good and the bad, and try and, as Graham says, understand where they were coming from and why. The modern media is very fond of judging everyone by today's standards and not looking at it at standards 200 years ago, where they were very different.
Yeah.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank
Can
you.
I just
Nice
say
summary.
thank you, Robert. In the presentation that I did for the Hassall, Thomas Hassall line, the park that is in the picture behind me, the Hassall Park, Oberon Council very carefully put two sides of a, it's not a storyboard, but it's a board, an information board. And so one side of the board is the European Hassall history. The Hassalls feature quite a lot. On the flip side is the Aboriginal history of those lands in the O'Connell Plains. So it's putting both together without taking any offence. It's putting the facts there. And I think if you read them like that, that's how it is. And I think Oberon Council did a very good job. It's not over the top. It's very simple, but it's to the point.
Well, it's interesting. I've noticed they have something say something. Beatrice Blanks.
Yes, certainly, Beatrice.
I had a book which I read about Hume and Hovell, and that Angela Lind said that it wasn't quite accurate because she said Hume was helped. Hovell apparently was a bit of a dropkick, to put it bluntly, and Hume was helped by the Aborigines in survival. And I think a lot of the Aborigines did help the settlers in survival, when they were starving. They just couldn't understand, why they were starving, the explorers. So it's just a point that she made that, that the Aborigines certainly helped Hume exploration much more than they were credited with in that book that I just read. It was published a couple of years ago about Hume and Hovell. Yeah.
Hamilton Hume made it to Western Port Bay because he was friends with the Aborigines. He grew up at Appin, and they were his friends, and he learned his bushcraft from the Aboriginal people. But he couldn't get the money together because he was a currency lad, and it needed Hovell to be the representative from the government to get the funding. And so the only reason they could get the funding to have the expedition was because of Hovell, but Hovell didn't know where he was going. And when they got to the Hume, well, it was called the Hume River, now the Murray, Hovell turned back but got lost and had to go and find Hume, because Hume could navigate his way through the bush, and Hovell was a sea captain and he didn't have those skills. But Hamilton Hume was a good friend of the Aboriginal people.
That's understood.
Fascinating, fascinating.
So it'd be nice to rename the Hume River, wouldn't it?
Good luck with that.
Actually, just one more thing quickly. I think that so little is known generally about the Hassall family at large, because there's plenty known about the John MacArthur. And I think, they were connected in many ways. And he was sort of took the limelight, whereas the Hassall family kept a fairly low profile. Because I have friends, I mention the Hassall family and they have no knowledge at all.
And yet there's so many places named after the Hassall. I mean, Hassall Street in Parramatta, Hassall Grove, and goes.
Hassall Street.
We said at the previous reunion that the Hassall family are the quiet Australians before anyone else used it in general media. The Hassalls have never blown their own trumpet. They never did. They were Methodist missionaries, or they became the Methodists, and they weren't there to be big noted. They were there to serve. and they came to Tahiti to do that. When they came to Sydney, they bloomed where they were planted. They were planted in Parramatta, and the only game in town was Samuel Marsden, so they threw their weight behind him, but they've never blown their own trumpet, and that's the strength. One of the strengths of the Hassall families. There's a very we know that in genetics that we're 2/3 in our genes and 1/3 from our environment. That's twin studies from America, and you can see. I was astounded when we had about 500 people. I think was it Uncle David at the reunion and at Cobbitty, and it was a very quiet, peaceful place because I think that's the personality of the Hassalls. Now I'm sure you'll find an example we had 10,000 people on the family tree at that stage, and if you're estimating there's 30,000 now, we missed a few, but you'll find some examples. But there's I don't know of any prime ministers, but there's high court judges and there's all sorts of people who have been members of the Hassall family, and but they just quietly get on and do things, and you don't have to big note yourself. Yes, MacArthur had a higher profile, but he had some problems too. So,
can I just butt in? I've printed off the Hassall reunion shell preliminary event program, and on the Saturday you've got 2 instances there where you may be getting a guest speaker. Have got any ideas on the guest speakers at the lunch and the dinner?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that, Andrew. So we have Anna Johnston, who is at the University of Queensland, and she's an associate professor in English literature, and she specialized in the study of missionary literature and knows the Hassall family context and was delighted to be asked. So Anna has accepted. You can look her up, Anna Johnston with a T. And the other is Tanya Evans. And Tanya, the committee's just hearing this for the first time because we've just confirmed it. Tanya Evans is professor at Macquarie University, and she's at a Centre for Family Studies, and she's an expert on family studies in Australia. And she has written papers that include the Hassall family. She was in touch with the Hassall family history group 20 years ago, seeking information, which then she put into some of her papers. So they're the 2 at the moment who I think will be able, we asked for people who would be able to provide this, we talked about setting the context of, 19th century early settler society and the role of this family as that society was emerging. And I think these 2 speakers will do a splendid job in that. But in addition, Tanya Evans will be able to talk to us about what it is to be a family history association or a family association, because she studies public history and family history, and will be able to talk to us about what it is to be this contemporary family organization that wants to cherish its own history and make its way into the future. So they're the 2 keynotes at the moment.
Yes, well, I like the outline. Lunch or afternoon tea at Denby. I remembered going there 24 years ago. I was a bit younger then. And the mayoral reception at Old Government House. So that'd be the mayor of Parramatta, I imagine, would it?
We don't know if the mayor is confirmed yet. We're having a meeting in October in Sydney. And again, for my committee members, take note, on the day we're in Parramatta at 11 a.m, we're visiting Government House to talk to the lead person there, Corinne, interesting second name, I've forgotten, and about use of Government House. She's very delighted about that. She explained the Hassall connection. So Government House will be locked in, but it may mean we'll have to finish at Denby a bit earlier and have lunch there, not afternoon tea. Andrew, you got some good questions there. What else do you want to know? That's great.
Oh, well,
don't ask how much it's going to cost us.
Yes, okay. How much is it going to cost?
No, I said don't ask.
All right, okay, don't ask that. Right, well, where do I
we-
sign up for these things? You know,
Yeah.
like I've been to Camden, I've been to Cobbity, I haven't been to Narellan, and you know, I got down to Parramatta with my son earlier this year for the first time ever and found Roland Hassall's grave. So it's only taken me 60 years to get down there. But it was wonderful. And there's so many other things here like Roland and Elizabeth Hassall's site of home and store. I have no idea where that is. Youth sports at Thomas Hassall Anglican College and projects. What does that involve?
I will look. Maybe I should let other committee members talk about those ideas rather than I just talked about the keynote speakers, but someone else wants to speak up on the rest of the program. Alison, Melissa.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew, for asking questions. The youth sports, of course, that's our draft program, and we're just hoping to somehow include the younger generation and the younger generations, and we have yet to actually itemize what we would do. Sports / activities / whatever we decide, but we're not going to overlook that they don't exist. That's why that's there.
Okay, no more questions. I have no more questions.
Andrew, those are good questions. It's possible to read on some of these things before you come down. So, for example, for the 109 George Street, where the Hassall House was, there was a substantial archaeological dig when they put up the current buildings. And in that archaeological dig, they did a detailed history, not only of the Aboriginal origins of that site, but of those who had lived on it, including the long-term use of that site by the Hassall family. So we can share that type of literature. And, you know, for those who want to, they can read it before they get there rather than getting indigestion over 4 days. You know, it's possible to become pre-armed with knowledge and information. And the idea of a history walk is that you can literally walk along and see where that's, Sean and I have been there, maybe others have as well, to that spot. It's no longer the house, but the site is there and it's marked. It's observed that this is where the Hassalls were there, amongst other things that happened there. And you can actually walk along to Government House. You can walk to the cemetery that you've seen. So we're working on a history walk that you can walk with your family members and with a guide and read, so you get a sense of where they lived and worked in Parramatta.
Good. 109 George Street, Parramatta.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Melissa, do you want to speak more about the history walk?
Well, my mother Beatrice and I went on a walk in 2020, just before the lockdowns, and we had a tour guide there. She helped us to find, she did some research before we went on the walk, and with Graham and Hewan's advice on where various sites were, we walked around Parramatta to the different various significant sites of their old home, the store that they had, Roland Hassall School, Hassall Street, of course, and Old Government House and the cemetery and St John's Cathedral and a number of other places that we didn't incorporate in that as well. But there were about 8 on the map I was able to put together, which is the map that the Parramatta Heritage and Visitors Centre has. And it's very clear, it has the illustrations on it. So it'll be just a universal map everyone can use and refer to. And that takes about 2 hours, or about 2.5 hours if wanting to go at a slower pace, and ending up at the Parramatta Cathedral for the service on the Sunday.
Sounds great.
Just really interesting, heartwarming to know that, you know, we're walking the places that our family walked and served God and the community, and built churches, schools. You know, it was really, you know, very makes you feel good about what they did.
Can I just add to that? I've just got a photo here of that plaque. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that at all? It's the first Sunday school was founded by Thomas Hassall on this site. Can you see that?
Gonna hold it up a bit higher, closer to the camera.
Up a bit more, Mum.
Closer to the camera.
Closer to the camera. And up. Yeah, we can see it, but not very clearly.
Bit hard to read.
Yeah, sorry. But it's all this, and along the, we walked along the river, and there's also, Minister, if you recall, there was a plaque along the river.
There's actually sculptures right next to Parramatta Wharf with Hassall names and quotes, and Walter Laurie and other Hassall, you know,
that's
to the Hassall family.
Yes. Yes, you can see that.
That's right. So that's part of the walk. That's on the walk as well.
Yes.
So it's just a very interesting journey, and to start or to go on. I've been part of this for about 3 years, and there's just so much to know and learn, and it just becomes more and more interesting and relevant to our lives and who we are now.
Okay. Coming towards the end, any great comments from everybody. I think it's been a great meeting. Before I do come to the conclusion, as we're getting close to the advertised closing time of 9, any other thoughts? Any closing thoughts before I give a formal conclusion?
Not sure whether you can hear me.
Oh, at last, Stephanie. Yes.
Yes, I found. Hello, everybody. And it's lovely to hear all your voices and see all your faces. And I'm sorry, but I'm not really, I found my way around anyhow, so I haven't missed anything. And I'm Dorothea Hassall's daughter. So Dorothea and Laura and Nanny, and but being in Western Australia, we were very remote from everything. But Mum, as Dottie as she was known, has always talked and told me and taught me things about the Hassall family. So we're all hoping to come over. I have 4 children. Well, they're not children now. I'm 79. And I'm alone now, and my husband died, and I think my brother will be coming, and my daughter Kate possibly.
Yes.
So it's going to be super to see you all. I've always been fascinated about the Hassall family, so maybe I'll learn a lot.
A special
Thank you.
A special good day to Will from James Daniel. Visited him about 25 years ago over in Perth. So I look forward to reciprocating the hospitality. That'd be great.
Yes,
it's
well,
wonderful.
Yes, so I'm glad I finally made some contact with you all. Best wishes.
That's wonderful, Stephanie. That really is. So I think that's maybe comes to the formal conclusion. So on behalf of Melissa, Kathy and myself, I would like to thank Graham for his presentation and all the effort that goes into these Zoom meetings to bring this technology together for allow over 20 of us to get together. Graham, thank you. And also I'd like to thank Alison for her presentation on the effort that's gone into the Hassall family reunion. And we're all looking so forward to it. It really is just going to be a great event. So I think I've remembered everyone to thank, and yet also say the effort that the whole association's putting into it. I think it's great. And so I guess finally, thanks all for participating, and look forward to seeing you all in person at the reunion, if not before. Thank you.
Very good.
Wonderful.